Yo, what's going on guys, it's Cynical and welcome back to another video. Today for you guys, I wanted to do a Kingdom Hearts discussion talking about how different Kingdom Hearts 4 might be in comparison to the previous Kingdom Hearts games as a whole. We're now moving into an entirely new saga, but the main reason as to why this might be truly different feeling is because of unreality. Kingdom Hearts 4 takes us into a brand new realm, one that seems to be parallel to that of the normal Kingdom Hearts universe, I suppose you could call it, that we're usually used to. And because of this, it means that a lot of what we're usually used to when it comes to Kingdom Hearts might appear and act different. I've been thinking about this a lot since the reveal of Kingdom Hearts 4, and I don't know if people have really realized just how different a lot of Kingdom Hearts 4 in the ways of its presentation and even mechanics and even down to the music might be compared to what we're usually used to. I want to talk about the big and also minuscule things that could appear to be a little bit different in KH4. Now, I don't think that overall the game will be different in the ways of the actual gameplay and whatnot. In its core, Kingdom Hearts 4 is 100% going to feel and look like a Kingdom Hearts game. I don't think Kingdom Hearts is going to have some kind of loss of identity or an identity crisis. It's interesting when talking about the whole identity thing towards Kingdom Hearts 4, because this was something that was sort of brought up when KH4 was first unveiled back in April. A lot of people were talking about how Kingdom Hearts is kind of going through an identity crisis due to the new visual style of the game, but you can tell that the people that are making those kinds of comments clearly aren't keeping up with the Kingdom Hearts story. Obviously, there's a reason why Square Enix is going for more of a realistic, I guess, Final Fantasy visual take on a Kingdom Hearts game. It's due to the fact that Sora has literally entered what is the real world. So let's talk about these smaller things that might actually appear different in Kingdom Hearts 4. First thing is chests. Maybe the chests won't actually look like actual treasure chests, keeping in mind that the realm that Sora comes from, the Kingdom Hearts universe, is obviously very Disney-eccentric, very fantasy-orientated, and so that the loot chests literally do appear as treasure chests. It would be interesting if the chests in Quadratum or in Unreality don't actually have that fantasy kind of treasure chest look to them, but more so of a modern take on a treasure chest, more realistic looking, something that you'd maybe find in Final Fantasy VII Remake. The save point, yes, even the save point. I do think that this will look different in Kingdom Hearts 4. I can almost bet on Square Enix changing all of these little smaller details in the game, and the save point is something that's pretty iconic to Kingdom Hearts. Even though you probably don't take too much notice of it, it's always, for the most part, appeared visually the same throughout most Kingdom Hearts games. It's this green-looking magic circle on the ground. How interesting would it be if it did appear different in this universe? Rather than green, would they go for blue? The overall menu and font UI could appear different in this game too. We've always had the same looking font for Kingdom Hearts games within its menus, and overall the menus have generally all looked pretty similar to one another. Of course, there have been some changes among the various Kingdom Hearts games we've had when looking towards the in-game camp menu. Kingdom Hearts 3 is probably the biggest change, sort of modernizing the menu layout for a Kingdom Hearts game, but I think overall the menu could change yet again for Kingdom Hearts 4 when looking towards the actual font that's used within menus and the layout overall. Keeping in mind that the actual logo for Kingdom Hearts 4 has been changed. The font appears different to represent this brand new saga, but likely to represent the fact that we're now in this completely new realm that is more leaning towards realism. And so when looking at fonts and the menu layout and stuff, I think that's another thing we can probably expect to be changed. Something maybe more in line with what appears in like Final Fantasy 15 or the Final Fantasy VII Remake. One thing I'm absolutely crossing my fingers for though is please bring back the full-on 3D models of the characters sort of, I don't know, walking or just sort of just standing there at least in the camp menu. This was heavily and sorely missed in Kingdom Hearts 3. We've had it for all of the Kingdom Hearts games. It's a very minor, non-important, small detail, but it's something that I really do appreciate about the older Kingdom Hearts games. I loved their menus. When looking at the items too, this is something that might actually be a little bit different. The items have always appeared the same. Obviously, when we look at a potion, it is a green star with a bunch of sparkles sitting inside of a glass jar. The high potion is 2 green stars with a yellow moon. So while I do think that we'll have all of the familiar items in Kingdom Hearts 4, like Potion, High Potion, Mega Potion, Ether, Elixir, the actual look of these items could appear to be different. The currency that's used within Unreality, I think it would be a cool little detail if money no longer exists but is rather something else. Could literally be yen, or how funny would it be if it was actually gil? This would also mean that the Moogle could change too. I'm sure that Moogles probably exist in Unreality. The Moogle has always visually looked the same throughout all of the Kingdom Hearts games, and we do know that there are like so many different Moogle designs out there from the various different Final Fantasy games, so they could either use a previous Moogle from a previous Final Fantasy game, or design an entirely new one that's more in line with Unreality. Dearly Beloved is one thing that I'm semi-what expecting to be changed. This has been the main menu theme that has played for every single Kingdom Hearts game, but what is unique about it is for every Kingdom Hearts game, there is a different rendition of it to, I guess, kind of capture the feel and themes of that said Kingdom Hearts game you're about to jump into. Now, I absolutely love Dearly Beloved. It's probably the most iconic Kingdom Hearts track by Yoko Shimomura that exists. You hear it every single time. But because we are starting a brand new saga and one that pertains to an entirely new realm, it totally wouldn't surprise me if the main menu theme is different. I kind of do want them to stick with Dearly Beloved, but one thing we can expect is if we do get Dearly Beloved to return, it will totally be a more interesting take on the song. I think this will probably be one of the more interesting renditions that we've had over the course of time. But don't expect this to return. I am sort of feeling like they might go for an entirely new theme song for Kingdom Hearts 4 and the Lost Master arc. Now previously we have talked about the worlds. We're unsure as to how the worlds are going to work in Unreality. Do the worlds of Unreality pertain to that of the classic Disney films from Walt Disney Animation Studios as well as Pixar worlds? Or, because it seems like Star Wars is of course going to be a world in Kingdom Hearts 4, is this going to be a setup where Unreality uses Disney's outer properties and outer properties only, like the use of Marvel, Star Wars, 20th Century Fox, and the Avatar property? Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of IPs there, but the sheer variety for the makeup of interesting worlds is a little low if Square Enix are just going to limit themselves to Disney's outer properties. Honestly speaking, I really hope that we still do have Pixar and traditional Disney films as worlds in Unreality. They could go for the setup of using the live-action versions of classic Disney films, as that would better suit the Unreality theme and visual art style of appearing more realistic. However though, I think that most of the interesting worlds reside more within Disney's original properties when looking towards their animated films from Walt Disney Animation Studios and Pixar. So it's going to be interesting to see how the worlds work in Unreality. Do they still pertain to Disney properties? We'll have to wait and see. But this then leads me into Keyblades too, so how exactly will Keyblades appear? Because this is Unreality, more realistic looking, I think we're going to be in for some really cool Keyblade designs. Probably some of the coolest that we've seen, being that they will most likely appear to be a little bit more realistic looking and probably more intricate. If it is going to be the setup of using live action worlds, then I wouldn't really expect the Keyblades to be colorful and cheerful like they've generally always appeared to represent the world from which the keychain is from. I've also been thinking a lot about how the whole Gummy Ship thing is going to work in KH4 too. Likely, there is an Oceans Between in Unreality, which is the space in which all of these multiple worlds exist in for the normal Kingdom Hearts universe. This is the Gummy Ship space, so call it. So yeah, likely speaking, there's probably an oceans between for Unreality, but is there such thing as Gummy Ships, or more so, do the Gummy Ships look more like actual sort of spaceships in this realm? I'm sure that the Gummy Ship system is going to return. It's an integral part of the main numbered Kingdom Hearts games, and I don't think that Square Enix would just one time use the Gummy Ship system that they developed for Kingdom Hearts 3 and then sort of scrap it for that of Kingdom Hearts 4 and come up with an entirely new system. We've had a few different versions of transport to other worlds in other Kingdom Hearts games. For Birth by Sleep, you just jumped on the Keyblade glider and you would go to a world. There was no sort of mini-game or mechanic in between. You would just simply visit the world on the world map. For During Drop Distance, there was the dive mechanic, which was a cool little mini-game having to collect a bunch of score in order to pass the dive section. Or of course there was a boss fight in the dive section itself that you'd have to get through. I think the Gummy Ship system is going to return, though there will be an interesting new twist on this, with it appearing more like an actual real-life space. And also too, Kingdom Hearts 3's Gummy Ship system is just hands down the best that the series has seen so far. I think this was the way that we initially envisioned and always wanted the Gummy Ship system to be, and finally we're up to a point where you literally roam around in space and you can see the worlds off in the distance. So I really wouldn't want Square Enix to remove that suddenly. I really want to see them build on top of this and evolve it even further. For the enemies of Kingdom Hearts 4, we're probably in for a big change up here. Now, it looks like the Heartless are returning for this game, and that they do exist in this realm, whether or not this was brought through via the Master of Masters, or the Heartless attracting Sora with his Keyblade. The Heartless are here. What we saw in that trailer seems to be a Dark Side Heartless, though not confirmed. If this is in fact a Dark Side Heartless, what this tells us is that the visual look of these Heartless are going to appear more demonic and realistic looking. This gets me really excited to start sort of visualizing what these iconic Heartless that we've been fighting against for so many years now are going to look like in this newfound realm. What are the Shadow Heartless going to look like? The Neo Shadows, the large bodies, are they going to have actual roles that are distinctive on the actual model of the enemy? This gets me really excited, and I think due to this fact alone, this is going to really give more of a darker emphasis this time around on this Kingdom Hearts game than any other Kingdom Hearts game that we've played through before. I've also been thinking about a new enemy variant, one that is specific to that of Unreality. There's a lot of different enemy variants out there in Kingdom Hearts. We've got the Heartless, Nobodies, Unversed, Nightmare Spirits. There's a lot. But what if Unreality has its very own? Magics is another thing that I could see being slightly tweaked in Unreality, with more of a realistic emphasis on the status effects. So for example, using fire would actually alight certain enemies. They would catch fire, or using fire in a dry environment could actually set alight the environment around you. Yeah, I'm thinking more on this whole realism type thing, and while we do have status effects from the use of magics in Kingdom Hearts, they're not used overly too often, so I could definitely see more of an emphasis on actual status effects being used in Kingdom Hearts 4 to mirror that whole realism thing going on. The removal of flow motion. So we have talked about this, but I thought I would bring it up again as we are on the exact topic. It kind of looks like, from the seams, the Keyblade keychain grapple hook might be the replacement of flow motion, in the ways of replacing that of air step, which was introduced in Kingdom Hearts 3, which is a take on flow motion, and that flow motion overall seems like it might be removed. Just judging by this one gameplay scene here in the trailer, it looks like the flow motion stick animation isn't present, and while this could just be a result of the game being in very early development, I'd like to think that flow motion is actually gone, like it's just straight up removed. Maybe it's an ability that Sora can no longer pull off now that he's in this brand new realm. But a replacement of that, and to help out with movement and traversal, would be the introduction of the grapple hook, which is used via the Keyblade's keychain. It looks like there is a bigger emphasis on parkour this time around than what was introduced in Kingdom Hearts 3, and so I feel like the use of parkour is going to be a little bit more prominent. That perfectly coincides with the grapple hook system, and that I really do hope that the grapple hook system is incorporated even as far as into combat. So again, like I was saying, replacing air step. But on top of that too, being able to actually pull enemies towards you, maybe to flick them up into the air to then perform an air combo. The grapple hook without a doubt certainly opens a lot of doors for combat opportunities. And finally, summons. So the summon mechanic has always pertained to Sora being able to call upon the Disney friends that he's met along the way so that those friends can aid him and assist him in battle. Now, I think this system would still kind of apply to Kingdom Hearts 4, just with the comment that Nomura's already made with saying that Sora's heart is still connected. That to me screams that he can still call upon the power of friendship due to the connections he's made with these different characters along the way via the power of his heart and all that Kingdom Hearts nonsense. But let's say that Unreality has totally blocked his usage of being able to use Disney characters as summons. What if the summons this time around are actually Final Fantasy summons, like Bahamut, or Ifrit, or Shiva? Final Fantasy summons were actually planned for the very first Kingdom Hearts game. Bahamut was planned to be an actual summon in the game, and still to this day, via the use of hacks, you can actually get Bahamut to appear in the summon menu. Now, there was never any coding or 3D model of Bahamut developed for the game, so activating Bahamut in-game literally does nothing. And this was due to, apparently, the idea of Bahamut being just too crazy and his model being way too big for the PlayStation 2 hardware to handle. They had to scrap the idea. But this is something they've wanted, so it wouldn't surprise me if they go back on that. For the summons of Kingdom Hearts 4, they pertain more towards Final Fantasy summons. So that right there gives you a bit of an idea as to how Kingdom Hearts 4 might be quite different in quite a few different aspects. Of course, these for the most part are all surface level things. As I was saying, I still believe that the core of Kingdom Hearts 4 will undoubtedly feel like a Kingdom Hearts game. I mean, that just goes without saying. But don't be surprised if a lot of the things that we've become so used to seeing in our Kingdom Hearts games appear and work a little bit differently in Kingdom Hearts 4. And of course, all of this would make sense as to where the story is currently at, with Sora being in a completely new realm. However guys, I would love to hear your takes and ideas towards this. What sort of aspects of Kingdom Hearts 4 do you think will be different compared to what we're usually used to? I'd love to know. However guys, I'm Cynical. Hopefully having a fantastic day, and I'll catch you guys real soon. Peace.